I'm going to go ahead and get started. Well, hello everyone and welcome to Builder Partnerships Webinar Wednesday. Our webinar today is Powering Your Future and Providing Peace of Mind with Generac Power Systems. Our presenter today is Dan. He's the account manager of the Builder division. He's been with Generac for 5 years now, and we are very excited to have all of you here. Before we get started, I do want to go over a few housekeeping items. You're all muted, so we're not able to actually ask questions live, but what we do have for you is a Q&A bubble down at the bottom of the screen. You'll see a Q&A bubble. Go ahead and type your questions there during the program, and we are going to reserve questions until the end. I'll read those to Dan, and he'll go ahead and answer those for you at the end. There's also a chat bubble there, so if you have any questions specifically for me or any technical difficulties, you can reach me through that chat function as well. We are recording this, so if you aren't able to stay on for the whole time or feel like this is something you want to share with other colleagues, please go ahead and share that. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dan, and he's going to give us a lot of great education on Generac and their products. Thanks,
Perfect.
Dan.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Emma. Thanks to Builder Partnerships for the opportunity here to kind of speak to you guys here. Again, as she had mentioned, my name is Dan Harmeyer with Generac. Been with the company about 5 years. I've played a few different roles, mainly on the inside sales role for the first 3 years. And then I've been on the account manager side here with the Builder channel for the last 2 years or so. So the information here that I'll provide, hopefully, number one, it's going to be educational for you. And number two, it's just going to kind of fill in hopefully some blanks or maybe some misconceptions that people had about the products or maybe the process, as well as trying to get you guys to kind of look at, maybe if you don't offer it now, here's, maybe some things to look into. If that leads into a conversation that I can have with you personally offline, however that would need to work. Those are really the goals here. So the first about 5 points or so are going to be education, right? Me going over products, a few different processes and so forth. And then the sixth one, it will be actually the process to purchase the equipment. So here at Generac, right, we have a very broad reach. So there's a lot of different ways that you guys can get access to our products. Whether that's right through your electrician, could be through a Generac dealer. You guys might have a direct account if you have one that was kind of made a while ago. So there's a few different ways that we can do that, and I would like to go over kind of the preferred options that we have and some of the different ones that we have used with some of the different builders such as yourself. So quick agenda. You guys all should be able to see the screen here for you. First point is going to be the 2020 National Electrical Code change. And essentially, right, making sure that you're ready, making sure that you're aware of what that code change is. And we do have a product here at Generac that will meet that code change, as well as make the home gen ready too, making that home able to have a generator installed at a later date. Second point is going to be the new air-cooled lineup. So actually, as of yesterday, December 1st, we came up with a couple new air-cooled lineup sizes. So that'd be the KW sizes, right? And then on the 24 KW side, kind of that second point, we came up with that on August 1st. So I'll go over kind of what those current changes are, what the 24 KW is, and some of the different details for those pieces of equipment. It kind of transition then from the actual the generator itself, right, to the switch. So that leads into the third point, Gen Ready option. So what we here call the Gen Ready option is installing the transfer switch. So that automatic transfer switch, installing that during the framing or maybe while your electrician is pulling wire for the home, and making sure that they have everything they need and installing the equipment at that time. It saves exponentially on the cost for you, and it is a very quick and easy install. So that would essentially be the first option. Maybe if that homeowner doesn't want to go with a full-fledged system, maybe they want to go with the switch now. That is something that we can certainly look into, and we do see a lot of the different builders go with that, and they see a lot of success, as well as there's a very decent revenue portion of that. for something that maybe takes your electrician half an hour to an hour or so. Fourth point, clean energy. All right, so that's what we call the battery storage product we have. So Generac has been about, I think it's about 65 years old now or so. This is how long that we've been around. And for 99% of that, it has been engine-driven product, right? It could be diesel, propane, natural gas, gasoline on the portable side. There's a lot of different engine-driven products and fuels that we have used. But we did realize and kind of feel the change, right? As with solar, as with battery storage, clean energy, green focused, there's a huge market for that, and there is a huge need for us, right? So we wanted to be able to take our name, right? I mean, it's kind of a household name at this point. If you speak about generators in the electrical generation space, people will be familiar with us. So kind of transitioning that over to the battery storage, kind of how that will all work, and the different products that we have, and the new customers that we can reach. So I'll definitely go over some of those options, and as well as what that product is. Fifth point is going to be some new larger kW units, right? So everyone's familiar, or at least hopefully and should be familiar with the air-cooled lineup. So when we transition to the larger units, say anywhere north of about 25 kW or so, you will get into the liquid-cooled units. On the 60 and the 80 kW, those are quite large, but we do have some new things for them. We do have some new products and some new processes on those, and that will definitely improve the overall customer experience on those. Sixth point is going to be the process for purchasing, as I'd mentioned before, and seventh is contact. Main thing here, right, is, again, if I'm not able to get to your question, maybe you don't think of it right now, maybe you just want to go over the process, however, or whatever question or concern you have, definitely reach out to me directly, and we can kind of go down that path at that point. All right, so there we go. So back to the first point, though, the first point of the agenda, right, is going to be that 2020 National Electrical Code change. We certainly understand every state might be, a couple of years behind. They don't always adopt the new ones. Frankly, probably 80%, 90% of the states don't adopt the code changes for 2, 3, 4 years. But as everyone needs to plan for the future, right, especially with COVID and everything going on, you want to be able to plan for next year, the year after, kind of see, well, what your homes will look like and what products they will incorporate. So the actual code change is essentially requiring an emergency disconnect outside at the utility meter itself. And the reason for this is going to be for emergency responders, first responders. If there is, say, a fire or whatnot, right? I mean, that firefighter is going to need to be able to cut off the electrical service going into the home for safety reasons. And with that said, we have it's a perfect solution. It meets a couple different needs for you. And what this product is, so we call it the meter transfer switch combination. And the reason we call it is on the top there from those 3 pictures, the furthest one on the right is going to be the full combo panel, right? So on the top, you have your standard meter can, the standard main that you guys will have on all of your homes. And then on the bottom, you will actually have the transfer switch mechanism itself, right? So that's going to transition the power. If the utility fails, you will be able to switch over to the generator power itself. And then on the left-hand side, that is the raceway for the mains that come in from the utility pole. So a couple points on this, right? Why is this a great product, or why would I need this on my job site? Number one, it is an all-in-one encompassing product, right? So the first thing is going to be spacing, right? So on the side of the homes, instead of having the meter as well as a transfer switch maybe outside or maybe inside next to the panel in the basement or wherever that may be, everything is incorporated into one box. It's a much cleaner install. Along with the cleaner install is going to be a lower labor cost, right? It's going to be a lower installation cost. There's just overall less equipment to install. and for the reasonable cost, right? So when you compare having to wire in two separate items, the switch, the meter, two pieces of equipment, the overall cost savings will be anywhere from about 10 to 20% is what you guys will be able to save upfront. And at the same time, right, kind of all of the things that I have already said, future-proofing those homes. So as about that, I believe is the fourth or fifth point on the agenda is the Gen-Ready option, right? So as we look at that, this particular model here with the transfer switch mechanism in the bottom will make those homes ready for a generator at some point. You can install this meter, you can install the transfer switch combo. You do not have to install the generator up front. You can do it maybe post-closing, maybe if you don't want to get involved in the process, and that homeowner wants to find someone 2, 3, 4 years, down the road, they've experienced a long outage, they have a kind of maybe a change of mind. Those are all things that they can determine at that time, but about 80% of the work is already done for them, so that saves them exponentially on the cost as well. We'll go to the next slide. So, right, with all those points that I had just mentioned, why it's the biggest, the greatest thing out there. So there's also a few different ways that you can order it. So you don't have to order it just one way. There's a few different ways. So as you can see here on your screen, the first one is going to be essentially what we will call the builder switch. The reason for that is it will not have the transfer switch mechanism included. It will only have the meter main on top. So then at that point, as I'd mentioned before, if you want to use, if you want to be able to use the main by itself, you don't have to worry about the combo. If you want to rely on that homeowner to maybe install that at a later date, that's certainly something that they can do. If they want to reach out to a Generac dealer, that is another option for them. The second option then is going to be the upgradable kit. So that is actually what you saw on the bottom there. That is the separate kit. You can order that completely separately. It installs with 4 screws. It is a very fast, quick and easy install too. The third option is going to be, if you do want to go ahead with that full-fledged system, right? Maybe you build in Florida, maybe along the coast somewhere, and a transfer switch or a generator is just the standard option. That's what you include on all of your homes. We see that across the board, especially, again, along the coast. So at that point, we would recommend going with the combination kit up front. That will save you some money on the front end on equipment, rather than buying 2 separate pieces of equipment. And the third option down is going to be if we have anyone building in California, with everything that's going on out there, right? I mean, as we talk about looking into the rules, the regulations, making sure that it fits into the local codes. There's a lot of specific codes for California. And for that reason, we made a specific meter main combo for them. And that will have a fully serviceable 40 circuit integrated load center. So you'll still be able to achieve the same coverage. It will just be a slightly different model for you. So as we, right, so again, you guys are going to hear me for a while here, but hopefully everything is very informational, educational, and hopefully we can get to some good questions later. So as we look at, or excuse me, kind of transition from the transfer switch over to the generator side, air-cooled side, right? That's what everyone is the most familiar with. So on your screen here, this is going to be the actual transition for 4 different kW sizes. So a couple things to remember, as you can see here, right? So 13 is going to 14, not a huge change. 16 to an 18, again, not a huge change. The 20 kW, that is going away. As well as if we, excuse me, let's go back. So, and then on the bottom is going to be the 24 kW unit. Again, that came out in August, or excuse me, on August 1st. So the main reason for the changes is, number one, the overall electrical demand from new homes continues to rise, right? I mean, with everything being connected via Wi-Fi. Everything's, powered by your phone. Everything has to plug in, so the usage and the draws are going up. The reason for getting rid of the 20 kW is, as you can see, right, so we have an 18, a 22, and a 24. So with that many units confined in that, 6 to 7 kW spacing, we did not need to keep the 20 kW. So we do have the 22 and the 24. And all of these items on the right-hand side there are available for sale today. That would essentially be through your local Generac dealer that I would align you with. A couple points on the 24 kW unit with the PowerView transfer switch. Number one is going to be cost savings, right? So typically the 22 kW, that was the largest air-cooled unit we made for us here at Generac. That was also the largest unit on the market. Now we came up with a 24 kW unit, right? Smaller, maybe 2 or 3 kW additional capacity if you really look at the details. And the main thing is going to be cost savings, right? So I mean, when you compare a 24 kW air-cooled unit to what a 22 or 25 kW liquid-cooled unit was in the past, I mean, on the equipment and the installation, you save about $8,000, right? So that's definitely a huge number. And some of the things that went into that number are going to be, number one, just overall equipment cost, the size, the engine, everything is just a lot smaller. So then that will help reduce the cost on the installation, right? So if you're familiar with the larger liquid-cooled units, they can, become quite heavy. They're a lot harder to move. You either need either a decent-sized skid steer, could be a crane if you get up into the larger ones, right? And all of those are associated with costs, where here it's still the air-cooled unit. You can still wheel it up. I mean, shoot, if you got a couple guys, you can pick them up. We don't recommend it, but if you do need to, you certainly can. So that's just $8,000 upfront savings on the overall system, as well as just spacing. So as I had mentioned, the spacing, right? The overall footprint of this unit compared to a 24 kW air-cooled, liquid-cooled unit is about 70% smaller. So I mean, right? I mean, that's a huge factor if you're trying to put it on the side of a house with a tight lot line. Maybe that consumer, that homeowner doesn't want to see the unit, so you're going to have to put shrubs around it. It's a lot easier and just overall a lot more cost efficient to use the 24 kW unit. So that's some information on the unit. Let's kind of look at the switch, right? Kind of what is this new switch? So essentially it is a home energy management system. As you can see on the cutout of the phone there, that is going to be what that homeowner will see in real time, what their usage is, what their utility usage is. So this is not just for what the generator is producing or what their equipment is using from the generator. The technology actually goes onto the two mains that come into the home, and then that can read the spikes as different things are used in that home. Then the second point is going to be net zero homes. So if that's one of your focus, maybe that's one of your selling points for your homeowners, as well as just trying to make those homes as energy efficient as possible. That's what everyone wants to look into, right? And you want to be able to prove and show your homeowner how efficient their homes actually are. And this technology is a great way to do that for a very small cost, especially if they're going to be going with the generator already. Last point, this is the largest kW air-cooled unit on the market today, right? So that's always a good thing to use, especially for us as the manufacturer. Quick view as to some different screens that you can actually see on your phone through the app, through the PowerView app. So there's two here essentially, right? I mean, if you want to kind of try and estimate your bill, if you want to compare your bill month over month, day over day, there's a lot of different things that you can do, and that is all again incorporated into the switch from the factory. You won't have to worry about there's no additional modules that you need to install. Last thing about liquid cooled versus air cooled, right? So those are kind of the two main things here that we use on the residential / commercial side of things here with new construction. On the liquid cooled side, on the left-hand side, right, there's still certainly are some applications where you will need that large unit, that large capacity, and so forth. So that would be three-phase applications. If you have anything needing over 24 kW, as well as if you need, say, anything with the diesel application. And the fourth thing that we don't have listed here is going to be extended outages, right? I mean, if you live in Florida, if you build in Florida, or maybe somewhere, you know, along the coast, could be in Oklahoma with ice storms. If you experience longer duration of outages and you're flirting with maybe the 24, 28, 30 kW capacity that you need to support your home, going with the liquid cooled unit is definitely not a bad option, as the longevity of those units and just the overall consumption can be a little bit easier on that engine. On the air-cooled side, right, number one, cheaper. Number two is going to be the standard Wi-Fi. So you can get Wi-Fi on the liquid-cooled units, but that is a separate module that will come standard on all of the air-cooled units. Sound. So it will be slightly quieter than some of the liquid-cooled units, even if you get the 1800 RPM ones. Longer maintenance, right? So you will be able to go slightly longer on the maintenance. You won't have to change the oil as often. And so forth. And then the fourth main point is going to be installation, right? So as you look at smaller footprint, more lightweight, everything that's included, it just makes it overall a lot easier. If maybe there's a budget from your homeowner and you want to, you know, try to stay underneath it, going with this air-cooled unit is a great possibility for you. Last thing on the 24 kW unit is going to be pricing. So these are the full-blown MSRP prices. This is not what you would have to pay. Right, so I mean, you would be paying less than what you see here. Two options: the 24 kW unbundled, that will come without the switch. 24 kW unit with the switch is going to be listed there for just over $5,600. And if you were to break up each individual item, that is on the right-hand side. So make sure we stay on time here. So with the Generac prep package, right, I've referenced that a few times already. It's going to be, right, essentially installing that switch during construction, during framing, during the time that your electrician is pulling wire for the home. And when we talk about that, there's a few different options you can use. One is going to be that meter combo panel, right? We already talked about that. Two is going to be the combo panel, right? So the wording is not the easiest way to distinguish each one, but the combo panel that you see here on your screen on the left-hand side will have the service entry rated option on top, so that will have a 200 amp breaker. And then below that, you will actually have individual circuits. So you would be able to use this combo panel as the actual main panel for your home and still have the transfer switch mechanism and the 200 amp breaker on top, right? So, I mean, if there's limited space, if it's just a much cleaner install, if it works for you, that is a great option for you too. As we move to the right-hand side, that would be the standard switch that I'm sure that you guys are the most familiar with, the standard 200 amp service rated switch. So any of those three options, I mean, if you have a 400 amp option or 400 amp service, we have equipment, we have switches that would definitely be able to meet that. And then that way, right, I mean, 80% of the overall work is done. The wiring is complete. You can drop in the unit at a later date. Talking about the unit is going to, right, and kind of placing the unit is going to be obviously where it goes, what it sits on, as well as just the overall installation of the gas lines, right? So our units run off either natural gas or liquid propane. Those are the two main popular options. So those would be some great things here to have maybe in your truck, maybe along with your plumber and whatnot. It will give them some general guidelines. So if they do need a trench, if they do need to drop a T off the main gas line or whatnot, they know exactly what size pipe to use. All right, so that was all about the engine-driven product. I'll go over some slides here about the battery storage, solar, right, storage, sunshine, however you will want to distinguish it, as we do have some great options for you. And again, everything that I speak to on here is available for sale today. That is something you can reach out to me, and we can go over what that process is. So some background for you, how Generac got into kind of the clean energy storage space. So we've realized the need for it, right? The need, especially out in California, is the main one that we started with the rolling blackouts with PG&E, right, and so forth. So we looked into a couple different companies. The first one is going to be Pika. So Pika actually had the storage solution. They had the engineers on staff. They were actually selling their own product already. They were selling storage cabinets, their own inverters, and so forth. So we realized that. We actually went ahead and made that acquisition. The second acquisition is going to be Neurio. So Neurio is going to be the home energy management system, kind of how everything communicates. Also the same thing used in the power view switch, that is the same technology. So with kind of their technology and the ways that they can communicate the systems to work together, in Pika's kind of history on the battery storage, we thought that would be a great fit, and it certainly has been. A quick overview as to products, right, kind of what they would look like, since you may not be familiar. So on the left-hand side, the power cell product, that is what we call the storage product that we have. The taller option there on the left is going to be the battery cabinet. So there are 6 modular batteries that you can incorporate into that cabinet. You have to have at least 3, but you can go up to 6, right? So you can scale it up to the needs of the customer, whether that's electrical demand or just the overall budget for you. Then on the left-hand side, that is going to be the inverter, right? So that is going to control the system. That is going to either allow it to charge the batteries, whether it's going to be going back to the grid if you have net metering, especially out in Arizona, say rate arbitrage. There's a lot of different ways that system can work. And then you can also send that back to your actual home in the event of maybe a storm or whatnot. So that inverter is a very key piece for the overall system. In the middle is going to be essentially what the overall view would be on the app, right? So everything in this day and age has their own app. So just as the Power View has an app that you can see the real-time usage, the Power Cell will as well. So you can see where the system is being charged from, what the charging system is currently at. There's a lot of different information that you can see on there. The Power View, right? So that would be the actual technology itself that is incorporated into that switch that I had mentioned before. It is a separate module that we can, or you can, retrofit if that is something that you see fit. So I'll quickly go over some of the different ways that you guys can use the system, different ways that you can talk to your homeowners and kind of see maybe what their interest is, what they're looking to get out of it. So I'll start right on the top there with those 4 individual squares. So those are representing the solar panels on top of the roof. When you follow that back to what we call the PV link, that is a Generac product that you would need to use with the system. One thing to note about our system, it is solar panel agnostic. So you do not have to worry about using a certain manufacturer with solar panels. Say you're familiar with a certain solar integrator that uses their own manufacturer for their own reasons. As long as you have that PV link system, everything will work and it will all communicate without an issue. So as you follow that PV link down back to the actual power cell battery cabinet, so you can see there, you will get up to 17.1 kilowatt hours of runtime. And that is with a fully loaded cabinet. That would be with 6 of the modular batteries. If you go down to 3, I believe you get anywhere from about 9 to 10 kW or kilowatt hours of runtime. So when you compare the overall capacity to the generators to what we typically have with the engine-driven product, right? I mean, it's the capacity isn't there for, you know, maybe backing up the home for a week or 2 weeks if there's a hurricane or whatnot, especially if there isn't dependent sunlight. There's a lot, the system can only support so much. So what we've tried to focus on are what the typical customer is, right? I mean, they might have a solar already. They might be green energy focused, right? I mean, they might be having a Tesla car, right? I mean, however they will want to look into it, maybe how as interested as they can be, that would be the customer for this product. So if you follow that back to the right-hand side from the power cell battery cabinet to the power cell inverter, as I had mentioned before, that controls everything. So right, you can see here that feeds back to the main panel, to the sub panel, and then also feeds from the battery cabinet. So there's 3 different ways that you guys can actually use the system. It's not like you have to use it the same way every time. So this would be essentially just using the system without the cabinet. So if you just want to pull straight from sunlight, you certainly can. Right? That avoids the opportunity to store it, but that certainly is an option for you. And as you can see here, right, I mean, it'll go from the solar panels on the left, direct to the inverter, direct back to the panels. So this is what you could also use for net metering. As I'd mentioned before, I've used Arizona in the past just because I know of the rate arbitrage that there can be, especially say from the hours of about 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. When everyone comes home, all of the AC units will kick on and so forth. So then they do have a much higher rate at that time. So essentially you would set the system to run, to sell back throughout the day, and then at that point it would help actually lower your overall cost on the utility bill. And here is a system without any solar, right? So you don't have to use solar. If you want to, great, but you don't have to. You can actually charge the power cell battery cabinet from utility. So you can store that utility power, and you can use the system as maybe more of a emergency backup system. But again, remember the overall kW, the overall kilowatt hours are going to affect how much you can actually run and support. And the third option is going to be the full-fledged system, right? So that's going to include solar panels, it's going to include the battery cabinet, the inverter. So then that way you can kind of be your own self-supply, right? I mean, if you want to be a true energy island, you certainly can. As long as you can have enough sunlight to keep the batteries charged, that is an option. If you want to maybe have utility but only use it when you have to, as kind of the emergency backup, you certainly can. So, right, I mean, there's 3 different ways here just now that I had mentioned that you can actually use with the system. Competitive advantage, right? Why you should go with us over the competitors is going to be a couple things. Mainly, it is going to be the weight of the battery. So you can see here with Tesla, LG Chem, Solar Edge, and whatnot, those batteries, they're not modular. So they're one heaping battery that could be upwards of 200 pounds per battery. And per OSHA, right, I mean, per their standards, you would need anywhere from about 2, 3, maybe even 4 installers to properly install that equipment. Whereas you look at our system on the far right, since it's modular, each module only weighs about 75 pounds. And so it is very quickly, very easily installed with only one installer. If maybe they start with 4 modular batteries and they want to scale up to 6 in 2 years, that's great. You go over there, you plug the remaining 2 in, make the connections, the system will recalibrate and everything will be all set. So that's going to be just quickly an overview as to the overall installation process for you. A competitive advantage number 2 is going to be capacity, right? So As we look at anything with electrical, with an AC unit kicking on, if we want to get super technical, we can talk about locked rotor amps and how exciting all of that stuff is. But it's essentially just the inrush, right? I mean, when that motor kicks on, it needs a lot more to start than it will need to maintain. So on that starting amperage side, we can get up to 50 amps of starting power and capacity. That will be able to, again, start that AC unit. Could be a heat pump, could be heat strips, right? I mean, there's a lot of different larger electrical loads that having that additional capacity over, say, the 30 amps from Tesla, that is a huge advantage for us. Deep breaths, right? So that was the storage product. So I'll definitely leave some time here as this is the last thing to cover, and then we'll be able to get into some questions. So the last thing is going to be the 60 and the 80 kW unit, as I had mentioned before. We understand this doesn't appeal to everyone, but if you build, say, homes north of 8,000 square feet, maybe you build all electric homes, or it could even be small apartment complexes, maybe small townhouses. When you get up into, say, maybe 400 amp service and so forth, you will typically be looking at, say, anywhere north of a 30 to a 40 kW unit for full backup for that home. And just, again, back to the educational piece, just so you're aware, just so if you're going out quoting, if you're talking to homeowners or whatnot, we do have this new product, right? So number one, it's going to be a new engine. So we went from a 5.4 liter engine to a 4.5 liter. And with the smaller displacement, we threw a turbo on it to get the additional performance and kind of the overall power that we need from that unit. Fuel performance is huge. So, right, I mean, if you're familiar with these units, even on the air-cooled side, at full tilt, they can be quite thirsty. So they will consume some fuel, whether that's, a 1,000-gallon propane tank you have buried, or whether that's straight from the natural gas line that comes from the street. So with this unit, it will require 25% less fuel at full load. Right, so I mean, 25% less fuel is a ton, especially if you're going to be running that unit, say, for a day or two. If you have a longer power outage, 25% is a ton, and that is going to not only save you money, just kind of on fuel costs, but that will let that fuel go a lot longer for you too. And the other main thing I did want to mention, the two other things, smaller footprint. So again, as we talked about with the air-cooled and the liquid-cooled unit, the footprint is huge, making sure to kind of keep that as small as possible. It just makes it overall easier for installation and kind of placement. Lastly is going to be 1,800 RPMs. So these will be quiet. They will not be a nuisance. Your neighbor won't be knocking on your door and saying, "Hey, you need to turn that thing off." It is considerably quiet, especially for the size. This is a very interesting picture. Hopefully you guys get some great photos from this, but all joking aside, this is kind of the new thing. We did put a lot of R&D into it. We did a lot of testing, and we are very excited about it. One thing I will mention is the overall pressure that the unit can accept from natural gas is 3.5 inches, right? So I mean, that's going to be helpful. You're not going to need a regulator to ramp up that capacity. A quick thing here for you before we get to questions. Process to purchase, right? So we went over a whole bunch of things with equipment, with education and so forth, but how do you actually purchase the equipment if you don't want to go through your standard process today? Number one is going to be contact me. Give me a call. I'll be happy to go over what your options are, whether that's through a dealer, whether that's through someone else. Maybe we can look at what you're currently doing and see, hey, maybe I can help you out with that already. Second step, so what we recommend from the manufacturer's end is going to be aligning with the Generac dealer, right? So, I mean, the Generac dealer, this is what they do all day, every day. I promise you, if we get in contact with the dealer that I recommend, they're not going to be after your electrical, excuse me, they're not going to be competing with your electrician. They're not going to be trying to pull wire for your homes. So they're strictly for the generator and or the transfer switch. If they can get the maintenance, say for the next 3, 4, or 5 years, that's great. They're happy with that. That avoids any sort of callbacks on your end or your electrician's end as well. Step 3, conference call with the builder and the dealer. So that is where I can be on that call. I can certainly kind of go back and forth. The dealer is already familiar because I will call them first before we all get on there so everyone's on the same page. Step 4, scope of work, pricing, right? You have to go over, especially placement with timing, equipment, when you can have it, when you need it installed, and obviously what the overall cost is going to be. Step 4, right? So after you're comfortable, after you know kind of what you're going to be paying, unfortunately, I put 2 step 4s there, so apologize. The last one there should be obviously step 5. So step 5 is going to be selecting 2 to 3 different packages that you can offer to your homeowners. It can be a quick conversation, right? After you go over the flooring, hey, do you want to talk about, generators? Do you want to talk about backup power? If they say no, great, you can move on to the kitchen or go whatever the next one is. But at least bringing that up is huge, and having maybe a couple different options for you is also huge. So the first option we typically recommend is Genready, right? I've already beaten that thing up enough. I won't go over it again. Second is going to be a smaller kW size unit, maybe a smaller air-cooled unit. Could be maybe a 10 or 11 kW unit, only powers the essentials for them. Then the third option is going to be the full-fledged whole home option. They want everything backed up, or say 80% of everything backed up. That would be kind of the third package. You would know what your cost is from the dealer going in. You can put your markup on there. If it's cost plus, however your company works, those are all great ways to kind of appeal. And then that way you guys can still be involved in that revenue process. You guys can make, maybe $2-3 grand on a piece of equipment that the dealer installed. Your electrician will work with them, and it was a very quick and easy install. I won't go over each thing here for you because I do want to get to the questions, but dealer alignment, right? Again, I promise you, I know that typically they're going to be a electrical company, but they're not after pulling wire for homes. They focus on generators. They focus on maintenance. If you need any technical help, if you need, factory trained techs, if you need equipment or whatnot, typically they will stock it. So that is a hell of a lot faster for you than we're waiting for the factory at some times. You can, stop over there. Maybe they can even drop off that piece of equipment. It reduces responsibility. As I had mentioned before, reduces the callbacks. Overall client satisfaction is much higher. The dealer will go over to their home. They will go through their entire system with them and make sure that everything is up and running. They know how to use it. And heck, if they have a problem, they know exactly who to call. They're not going to be contacting you or your electrician. Lastly, we do have about 200 plus dealers pre-qualified for the builder program itself. As a company, we have about 7,000 dealers nationwide. So odds are, regardless of wherever you build, we will be able to find a good quality dealer for you. Contact slide. This is the last one. So we, myself and Dan Sullivan, unfortunately, we do have the same name, but so Dan goes by Sully at the bottom there, and he is our clean energy focused, our clean energy main guy, right? So if you have questions, reach out to me. I can reach out to him, but he has a lot more experience in that sort of world. And my contact is on top. Email, office number, mobile, whichever is easier, please let me know. All right, so now that you guys got to hear me talk for about 44 minutes, hopefully I can read some questions. So Emma, if you could go over if we have any questions, please.
I'm going to go ahead and put the poll up too while we're doing questions. So we do have a poll. So if you guys will take just a minute to answer the poll, that would be great. We have one question right now, and I'm sure there's others that are trying to process everything you just said. That was all great information. But he was wondering if there was any way to share some of your slides. I think there was some very valuable information on there that might be beneficial. And I don't know if there's a few slides that you can share, or I can have that person we can have people contact you directly for specific information, whatever, which is.
Yes. So I mean, if it's easier for you to kind of distribute it back to the group for whoever logged in, if that's something I send you, that's great. If they want to reach out to me, that's fine. So I mean, honestly, it's however is maybe easier for you is fine with me.
You can send me, I can send it out to the group, to everybody who attended today. So you're welcome to send that to me, and I can turn it into a PDF and send it out to the group.
Perfect.
That is definitely something I can do. It just has to be, I just want to make sure that you're willing to share that.
Yep, absolutely.
Another question. That was the only question so far. I do want to bring up too, you talked a little bit about pricing. One thing that's really great is that you are a member of Builder Partnerships. So there are special programs specifically for our Builder Partnership members. So it's definitely something that if you're looking at this, to make sure that you're taking advantage of those things.
Yeah, absolutely right. So I mean, whether that's on the rebate side, well, whether that's just on the front end cost. So through the program here that we have with Builder Partnerships, it's awesome, right? I mean, there's a lot of different ways that it can appeal to you guys as the builders. There's a lot of different ways that it can appeal to us as the manufacturers, and it allows us to start to have those conversations. So that's where I kind of referenced before, going over what your process is now. All right, we can go over pricing, we can go over kind of how everything flows, and then we can kind of plug in some things that we can use from Builder Partnerships end, and kind of see how we can improve that for you.
Excellent. And I know there's a few people that had some very specific questions, or were at least looking at, we're considering you guys as an option. So I don't know if you guys that were on here specifically, if you had some questions that you needed to have answered, or if Dan did a good job. He looks like he did a very thorough job of answering all of your questions. Tomorrow, within 24 hours of the webinar, we do send out an email with the contact information and the link for this webinar. So if you need to share it again with anybody else, you can do that. If you are needing the information sooner than that, just go ahead and send me an email directly, and I can go ahead and get you that information right away. But it looks like, let's see, I'm going to end the polling, and we have seven people went ahead and answered. So I'm going to go ahead and end the polling, and we can kind of see. Share the results. Here you go. Here's the results. So we have 4 people who are likely.
Number one is great. Right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Great.
And it looks like we have people from pretty much all over.
Gotcha.
The electrical service, 200 amps. Yep.
So for everyone on the phone, the reason I wanted to plug in what the standard electrical service is for you is that meter transfer switch combo that is currently available. The release date is Q1 of next year, but it will either be in a 150 amp or a 200 amp option to start with. We have talks to have a 400 amp option down the road, say Q2, Q3 of next year. But at least this kind of confirms the fact that, yes, that product would work for at least the majority of the people that were able to respond here. So that's very encouraging. And then the fourth one, right? So I just assume, without knowing a lot about the information, that equipment, that was probably what was kind of drawing up that fourth question option, where not sure was 3 of the 7, but there were definitely a few that were very, very likely, as well as close to maybe. So, right, I mean, those are all great opportunities. That's where I can help you, right? I mean, if you're interested, you kind of are intrigued, that's where I can help provide the details, provide the process, provide the pricing, and kind of close those leads, if you will want to call them that. Fifth one, so that one was, why would you choose Generac over another generator manufacturer? And it looks like the majority said to support the builder, which is great, right? I mean, we have that great relationship with Emma and Terry. I see that you're on the call, you and Lisa, at the Builder Partnerships. So we definitely want to expand on that, appeal to you guys as much as possible. And it's also good to see that the kind of second option for that answer is going to be reliability, right? We try to build as reliable a product as possible. That only gives you guys a lot better experience with your homeowners, and that kind of keeps our name up, right? I mean, it keeps it in good standing. So I think those were the 5 questions we had asked. So appreciate those that were able to respond. If not a problem, and you can certainly reach out to me directly, but
And we did get another question that came in. John Karowski wants to know what the growth of home generator market in the last 5 years, and what is the growth prediction over the next 3 years?
Great question. So some background for you. So the generator attachment overall across all markets in the U.S. in the last, say, 4 to 5 years has been anywhere from about 3 to 5%, right? So that means we are in 3 to 5% of homes across the nation, right? So it's a very small percentage. So that means there's a large opportunity. With everything that has been going on that I was actually talking to Emma about earlier as we hopped on the call, is going to be about COVID, right? I mean, that's what everyone's experiencing right now. Everyone's staying at home. Maybe they can't go to work. Maybe they don't want to go to work. They're not going on vacations, right? So it's kind of the stay-at-home mentality right now. And that's helping to drive a lot of business for us. Everyone's at home. Maybe their vacation, a budget that they're going to use. They would much rather have, the peace of mind, the reliability of that, the generator at their house. So we're seeing a lot of increased attachment rates. Some preliminary numbers, I believe, that we were told is we are up about to 7 or 8% of homes currently. And that was what we made up in the last 4 or 5 years. So I would expect that number to double, if not more than that, in the next 5 years. So I know that's probably a long-winded way to answer, but there's a lot that goes into it. So I would say we've increased about 5% in about 5 years, and I would expect to at least probably double that in the next 5 years.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Dan. I don't have any more questions at this time, but I will make sure to get your information out for everybody tomorrow in that follow-up email. And the webinar will be live on the recording will be up on our website this afternoon. So we just need to wait for it to process through the Zoom servers or whatever it is that happens in the background. So once that is done, we'll upload the link to our website, and you can revisit. Oh, we have one more question. Oh, thank you from John. He says thank you. That was perfect.
You're welcome, John. Yep. No problem.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Dan. It was a pleasure having you with us today. We look forward to seeing you guys again. This is our last webinar Wednesday for the year. We'll pick them back up again in January. So happy holidays to everyone and a happy new year. And we look forward to kicking off 2021 a little bit differently than we did halfway through 2020. So thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon, and we will see you again the first part of January. Bye-bye.
Appreciate it, guys.